say low memory objects. So one of the key distinctions that is
low memory objects.
Yeah. So physics is all
physicists are low memory
objects.
The physicists are creators of low memory objects or manipulators of low memory objects.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a very nice way. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry to keep interrupting.
No, it's fine. I like it too. It's very funny. But I think it's a good way of phrasing it because I think, this kind of idea we have in assembly theory is that, physics as we know it has basically removed time as being a physical observable of an object. And the argument I would make is that when you look at things like water bottles or us, we're actually things that exist that have a large extent in time. So we actually have a physical size in time, and we measure that with something called the assembly index in molecules, but presumably everyone should have sort of a do you want to explain what assembly?
Yeah, let's step back and start at the beginning. What is assembly theory? Please send me some slides. There's a big sexy paper coming out probably, maybe, I don't know.
We've almost finished it.
Almost.
That's also a summary of science. We're almost done.
Yes.
Well, no, we're almost done.
I think the history of science.
We are ready to start an interesting discussion with our kids.
Right. You're the machine that created the object, and we'll see where the object takes us.
Yeah.
All right. So what is assembly theory?
Yeah. Well, I think the easiest way for people to understand it is to think about assembly in molecules. Although the theory is very general, it doesn't just apply to molecules. And this was really Lee's insight, so it's kind of funny that I'm explaining it. But
I'll mark you.
Okay. All right. I'm ready. You can tell me where I get the check marks minus. But
it's your theory as well.
Yeah, so. I know. But imagine a molecule, and then you can break the molecule apart into elementary building blocks. They happen to be bonds, and then you can think of all the ways for molecular assembly theory. You can think of all the ways of building up the original molecule. So there's all these paths that you can assemble it, and the sort of rules of assembly is you can use pieces that have been generated already. So it has this kind of recursive property to it. And so that's where kind of memory comes into assembly theory. And then the assembly index is the shortest path in that space. So it's supposed to be the minimal amount of history that the universe has to undergo in order to assemble that particular object. And the reason that this is significant is we figured out how to measure that with a mass spec in the lab. And we had this conjecture that if that minimal number of steps was sufficiently large, it would indicate that you required a machine or a system that had information about how to assemble that specific object, because the combinatorial space of possibilities is getting exponentially large as the assembly index is increasing.
So just, sorry to interrupt, but so that means there's a sufficiently high assembly index that if observed in an object is an indicator that something lifelike created it, or is the object itself lifelike?
Both. But you might want to make the distinction that a water bottle is not life, but it would still be a signature that you were in that domain of physics, and I might be alive. So
there will be potentially a lot of arguments about where the line, at which assembly index does interesting stuff start to happen.
The point is, we can make all the arguments, but it should be experimentally observable, and Lee can talk more about that part of it. But the point I want to make about it is there was always this intuition that I had that there should be some complexity threshold in the universe above which you would start to say whatever physics governs life actually becomes operative. And I think about it a little bit like we have Planck's constant, which, and we have the fine structure constant. And then this sort of assembly threshold is basically another sort of potentially constant of nature. It might depend on specific features of the system, but which we debate about sometimes. But then when you're past that, you have to have some other explanation than the current explanations we have in physics, because now you're in high memory. Things actually require time for them to exist, and time becomes a physical variable.
So the path to the creation of the object is the memory. So you need to consider that.
Yeah, but the point is that's a feature of the object. So so when I think of all the things in this room, we see the projection of them as a water bottle, but assembly theory would say that this is a causal graph of all the ways the universe can create this thing. That's what it is as an object. And we're all interacting causal graphs. And most of the creativity in the biosphere is because a lot of the objects that exist now are huge in their structure across time. 4 billion years of evolution to get to us.
Is it possible to look at me and infer the history that led to me?
If
Me as a human.
you as an individual might be hard. You as a representative of a population of objects that have high assembly with similar causal history and structure that you can communicate with, i.e. other humans, you can infer a lot probably.
Yeah, also with
Which we do genomically even. I mean, it's not like we have a lot of information in us we can reconstruct histories from. Assembly is saying something slightly deeper.
Yeah, one thing to add, I mean, it's not just about the objects, but the objects that occur, and not just objects with high assembly number, because you can have random things that have a high assembly number, but there must be a number of identical copies. So you know you're getting away from the random, because you could take a snapshot. This is why I hate entropy. I love entropy when used correctly. Because the problem with entropy is you have to have a labeler. And so you can label the beginning and the end, start and the finish, Where what you can do in assembly is say, oh, I have a number of objects in abundance. They all have these features. And then you can infer. And one of the things that we debated a lot, particularly during lockdown, because I almost went insane trying to produce the assembly equation. So we came up with the assembly equation. Just imagine this. So you have this string where, actually it makes me sick trying to remember it. It did my head in for a long time. Yeah, because I couldn't. So if you just have a string of, say, words, say, a series of words, series of letters. So you just have AAA, BBB, CCC, DDD, and you find that object. You just have 4 A's, 4 B's, 4 C's, 4 D's together. Boom. Then, and that you measured that. So you physically measured that string of letters. Then what you could do is you can infer sub-graphs of maybe the 4 A's, the 4 B's, the 4 C's, and 4 C's. But you don't see them in the real world. You just infer them. And I really got stuck with that because there's a problem to try and work out what's the difference between a physical object and this assembly space of the objects. If we realise the best way to put that is infer in time. So although we can't infer your entire history, we know at some point the 4 A's were made, the 4 B's was made, the 4 C's were made, the 4 D's were made, and they all got added together. And that's one really interesting thing that's come out of the theory. But the killer, when we knew we were going beyond beyond standard complexity theory, which was incredibly successful, is that we realized we could start to measure these things for real across domains. So the assembly index is actually an intrinsic property of all stuff that you can break into components. Particularly molecules are good because you can break them up into smaller molecules, into atoms. The challenge will be making that more general across all the domains, but we're working on it right now, and I think the theory will do that.
So components, domains, so you're talking about basically measuring the complexity of an object in biology, chemistry, physics. That's what you mean by domains.
Complexity of testers,
sociology,
complexity of computers, complexity of memes.
Memes?
Yep.
What was that? Ideas?
Yeah, I mean, so
Ideas are objects in assembly theory.
Yeah.
They're physical things. They're just features of the causal graph. I mean, the fact that I can talk to you right now is because we're exchanging structure in our assembly space.
The conversation is the exchanging structures in assembly space. What is assembly space?
When I started working on Origins of Life, I was writing about something called top-down causation, which a lot of philosophers are interested in, and people that worry about the mind-body problem. But the whole idea is, if we have, the microscopic world of physics is causally complete, it seems like there's no room for higher level causes, like our thoughts to actually have any